Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kayla's mother is watching this hearing. She cannot figure out for the life of her what Jeffrey Epstein has to do with her daughter and this bill. Kayla was murdered in Maryland. Where was the ranking member then? What efforts did he make to ensure that no other senseless murder like this happened? Using the life and death of Kayla Hamilton to score political points against the president is absolutely despicable. I'm going to read from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General, the report that was issued on March 25th of this year, entitled, "ICE cannot effectively monitor the location and status of all unaccompanied alien children after federal custody," because that's what the point of this bill is to address.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your independent political analyst, no spin, no tribalism, just facts, context, and thoughtful commentary. Today, we're looking at a fiery exchange in Congress between Representative Harriet Hageman of Wyoming and Representative Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Two very different lawmakers, two very different priorities, but both speaking with passion. Let's break it down.
Quote, "After meeting with more than 140 individuals from DHS and other federal agencies, we determined U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement cannot effectively monitor the location and status of all unaccompanied alien children once released or transferred from the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services custody. From fiscal years 2019 to 2023, ICE transferred more than 448,000 UACs to HHS. Most were released to sponsors. However, more than 31,000 of the 448,000 children release addresses were blank, undeliverable, or missing apartment numbers. ICE also was not always aware of the location for UACs who fled HHS custody. We found that ICE did not effectively oversee UACs subject to removal by not issuing notices to appear to all UACs to generate assignment of immigration court dates by the U.S. Department of Justice. As of January 2025, ICE had not served NTAs on more than 233,000 unaccompanied minors. As of October 2024, ICE reported more than 43,000 UACs served NTAs failed to appear for scheduled court dates. Finally, ICE was not always notified of UAC's status and safety unless an allegation or tip was reported. These issues occurred because ICE did not always receive information about UAC's sponsor locations from HHS and other federal agencies. ICE also had limited staffing to monitor USC's cases and did not have a policy for all officers to monitor UAC's cases. Without an ability to monitor the location and status of UACs, ICE is unable to facilitate court appearances and has no assurance UACs are safe from trafficking, exploitation, forced labor, or involvement in criminal activities that may pose a risk to local communities. Kayla Hamilton. No. Kayla Hamilton. Okay. Kayla Hamilton.
Write it down for me.
The reason for what this bill is about, Kayla Hamilton was brutally murdered by Walter Javier Martinez, a UAC who was released to a sponsor, an individual who was responsible for housing and supervising the UAC by HHS before any background checks were completed. Kayla Hamilton was brutally murdered by Walter Javier Martinez, a UAC who was released to a sponsor by HHS before any background checks were completed. It is critically important that we stay on task with the issue that is before us today, and that is addressing the brutal murder of Kayla Hamilton and ensuring that this kind of a tragedy never happens again. This is not about Jeffrey Epstein. If the folks on the other side of the aisle would like to bring a bill about Jeffrey Epstein, we can address that. Do not sully Kayla Hamilton's name or her memory by turning this into a political sideshow. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this very well-crafted, important bill. It is critical that we be able to protect people like Kayla Hamilton. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. All said. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
I'd like to strike the last word, and I'd like to yield my remaining time to Congressman Moskowitz.
Thank you, the gentlelady from California. I have breaking news for the gentlelady from Wyoming. The idea of Jeffrey Epstein, that we could bring it, I just want to let you know that there's a gentleman that sits right behind you. His name is Thomas Massey. He has brought a discharge petition that, you may not have heard about it, he's brought a discharge petition that would release all of the Epstein files. Because I was listening to your speech and I was listening to Van Drew's speech, and it was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release the files, right? Like that was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release it.
Would you yield? Very briefly, would you yield very briefly?
When I'm
My
done.
words were about Kayla Hamilton.
Yeah, no, when I'm done, I'll yield.
words were
When I'm
about
done,
Kayla
I'll yield
Hamilton.
to you. When I'm done. So there's a discharge petition that would release the files. The reason why we talk about it in all these hearings is that we can't believe that you were all for releasing the files until the mothership beamed down the instructions to not release the files, and then all of a sudden it was a hoax, it's not real, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, right? We're gonna send the private attorney to move Ghislaine Maxwell, right? We're gonna do all of these things. We're just very surprised, and obviously Mr. Massey has stuck to his principles, and he's had a couple of others do that as well. Everybody else ran for cover, and so do you want to release the files? And then I'll yield. I mean, it's a yes or no. And then will you sign the Massey petition?
Will you yield?
I will.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got
Say
to yield back to the.
It's my time.
I got to yield back. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to yield. I want to take some of my time because it's also very simple. Like I said before, release the files, put it out there, pop the balloon, let out all this air. I, too, would like to get to the point where we could discuss the underlying bill. There's a lot of problems with the underlying bill. But when we met with the survivors, they said, we want transparency, we want action, we want accountability. We don't know why there's a flyover happening at the exact same time we're holding a press conference. We don't know why members outside of those in the Women's Caucus and a few other brave folks don't want to meet with us and hear our story. We don't know why we're getting thrown under the bus and treated as if we are perpetrators. And I don't know why either. We come into this committee, the Judiciary Committee, which is supposed to be about justice. And then we get subjective amnesia, and it's like, well, only justice for certain people. I don't know. For people who look like or look a certain way, speak a certain way, have a certain amount of money in their bank account. I thought we have one set of laws that everyone's supposed to follow. The survivors of the Epstein crimes seem to think the same too. And yet we have multiple sets of rules. So if you release the files, we can see whose rules, who's allowed to follow. We heard from survivors who said, Jeffrey Epstein said, I own the banks, I own the government. I can do what I want. We are talking about the Epstein files related to this bill because the man had multiple passports. He was traveling to far and away places like Monaco, Austria, Slovakia, Paris, Mexico, Morocco, involved orchestrating an international ring of trafficking young women, young enough to be someone's child, someone's grandchild. So vote on the amendments to release the files, to give the survivors what they want: transparency, action, and accountability. And with that, I yield back my time.
Gentlelady.
Harriet Hageman took the floor first. She centered her remarks on Kayla Hamilton, a young woman tragically murdered in Maryland. The accused killer was an unaccompanied minor from El Salvador who had been placed with a sponsor before background checks were complete. For Hageman, this case highlights deep failures in how the U.S. government handles unaccompanied alien children. She cited a Department of Homeland Security Inspector General report that documented serious gaps in IC and HHS oversight. Over 448,000 children were transferred between agencies in recent years, but tens of thousands of addresses were incomplete or wrong. More than 233,000 minors never received notices to appear in court, and tens of thousands more simply didn't show up. Hageman's message was blunt. This bill is about fixing those failures and making sure tragedies like Kayla Hamilton's murder never happen again. She warned her colleagues not to sully Kayla's memory by dragging Jeffrey Epstein into the debate. But that's exactly where Jared Moskowitz came in. He pushed back hard, arguing that releasing the Epstein files is not a distraction, it's about justice and transparency. Moskowitz pointed to a discharge petition introduced by Republican Thomas Massie that would force the release of all Epstein-related documents. He accused many Republicans of abandoning their earlier calls for transparency once. In his words, the mothership beamed down instructions to stop. For Moskowitz, the issue is simple. Survivors of Epstein's crimes want accountability, and the public deserves to know who was involved. He argued that Epstein's trafficking network wasn't a side issue. It involved powerful people, multiple passports, and international travel. If justice is supposed to apply to everyone equally, why should Epstein's associates get protection? So what we saw here is a clash of priorities. Hageman wants to focus squarely on immigration failures and protecting future victims like Kayla Hamilton. Moskowitz says ignoring Epstein is a betrayal of survivors and a double standard in our justice system. As a neutral analyst, I think it's worth noting that both lawmakers are touching on legitimate concerns. Hageman is right that the immigration system has holes, serious ones that can put communities at risk. Moskowitz is right that transparency in the Epstein case is essential to public trust and is showing survivors that the system isn't rigged for powerful. The problem, as always, is that these issues are being framed. One side says focus on Kayla, the other says release the files, when in reality Congress should be able to do both. Protect communities from dangerous failures and oversight, and release the Epstein files so justice isn't selective. Instead, we saw a hearing where two tragedies, one personal, one systemic, were used as political battering rams. The victims at the center, Kayla Hamilton and Epstein survivors, risk being reduced to talking points. The real takeaway for me is this. When Congress can't separate accountability from partisanship, the people who most deserve justice are the ones left behind. So what do you think? Was Harriet Hageman right to say Epstein doesn't belong in this debate? Or do you agree with Jared Moskowitz that transparency in the Epstein case is absolutely connected to justice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you appreciate independent, balanced analysis, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.